Tonight's guest is Dave. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Vic. Glad to be here.
Well, it's great having you. Thank you for your time. Dave, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
All right. Well, I live in Alabama, kind of on the Alabama-Georgia line. I'm in my mid-50s, hunt and fish my whole life. I've done a lot of different trades. For the past 20 years, I've did fence work. That's my living. Just basically one of them good old boys down here in the South that try to keep to themselves.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. That's how you stay out of trouble, isn't it?
That's the best way I can stay out of trouble, Vic.
Well, it works better for some of us than others. But no, I understand. Dave, when you reached out to me for the first time, you mentioned the fact that Dogmen and Sasquatch have been around you your whole life due to the amount of time that you've spent outside. What kinds of things have you done in the woods and close to them, though?
Oh, Lord. I mean, I've been in tree stands and had them walk up behind me after in the, wee hours of the morning. I've heard over the ridge tops chattering. And the Dogman, I just really noticed him about 2017. I would have never believed in anything like that. I mean, I'd have believed in a lot of other things before I'd have believed in a Dogman. But when you see one, the whole world changes.
Yeah, that it does. And that doesn't make you any different from most eyewitnesses, because most eyewitnesses, they didn't believe in Dogmen either until they saw one.
That's right. Like I said, I'd have believed in a lot of other things, but just being in the woods your whole life, you hear things and you see things, and some things you're used to, and there's some things it's a one of a time thing. And if you're out there, sometimes you'll see it, and if you're not there, you won't. And some people will come and tell you that, well, I've been in the woods my whole life and I've never seen nothing. Well, you might have seen something and you just didn't know what you was looking at.
Yeah, that's a good point. When I hear that coming out of a hunter's mouth or someone who thinks they've spent a lot of time in the woods, I just ask them, okay, well, if that's the case, how many kestrels have you seen in the woods? And almost every time I'll get this blank stare because most of them haven't seen a kestrel or they didn't know what they were looking at. But yeah, kestrel, that's a small predatory bird. It's smaller than a hawk, smaller than a falcon, but it's the most numerous predatory bird in the lower 48 states. So this argument, it's a really weak one that if Dogmen were out there, if Sasquatch were out there, then I would have seen one. Well,
right.
You haven't seen a kestrel, and there are more of them than any other predatory bird out there. Hawks, falcons, you name it. So what does that say about your argument about I haven't seen a Sasquatch or a Dogman?
And that's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, definitely. You live in Lee County, Alabama. Have you tried to find out if anyone else has reported seeing a Dogman in your area?
I really haven't. I mean, there's on Facebook and stuff, there's little pages on there. I don't fool with that stuff. Now, I haven't really asked around. I've had a friend call. He's recently deceased. But he's just a big old man. He's bigger than I am, and he's been in the woods his whole life. He's hunted all over the Southeast. He run dogs, a dog runner, avid dog runner. But he called me early one morning, about 6:30, and his first words out of his mouth was, "Dave, what's in these dad blame woods behind the house back there?" And he lives the crow's shot from me, probably about a half a mile through the woods on a creek back here behind our house. And to hear this man ask me that, and that just kind of blowed my mind. But it went around his house and woke him up, got him out of bed, and he was on the belly crawling to his hall with his 357 in his hand. And he said it was out on the front by the creek, and he went out front, and it would be on one side of the house, and more or less a howl, a growl. He said, the way I describe it is like a woman screaming, and then it turns into kind of a howl and growl. And you can hear it a long way off, and if you hear it up close, it will penetrate your body. But I kind of described what I've heard back here, and he said, "That's it, nail on the head, Dave." But it jumped off into a ravine right next to his and his neighbor's house, which is about 40 foot deep. And he didn't, needless to say, he didn't go looking for it. But he just sit up and drunk coffee and called me when it got daylight. But yeah, I've had a lot of folks tell me of a Black Panther sighting around here, something black crossing the road, and everybody assumes it's a Black Panther. I have no idea what it is, but I've got lots of neighbors that's seen that. But as far as this other, now my neighbor across the street, I think he's seen what I've seen, the way he described it, without me giving him any information. So I'm pretty much, they seen it after I did, trying to get their dog out of their pen.
Oh, that's not good. What kind of a dog?
It was a blue heeler, and it was in a 2 12 by 12 pens put together. And the guy and his girlfriend, they'd been out riding dirt roads that night, and they come in. And when he turned in the driveway, they seen something at the dog pen, and she said it had his head stuck in through the pen trying to get the dog. And he didn't really see it because he was driving. But she said when they turned in, it pulled his head out of the pen, looked at them, and sprang across the pen and into some pine trees. Just a little pine thicket of just seedlings coming up, but they were probably about big around as your wrist. And it was a real thick area. And she said it sprung into it, and he shot at it twice. He said he seen the eyes down in the trees down there. He said he seen the eyes before the lights hit them. And he said they was an amber color, and that's kind of what I go by when somebody tells me something. If they got the amber color eyes, I know exactly what they seen. But yeah, and he had a shotgun with him, and he shot twice at it. He said I shot directly at his eyes, the head, the first time. He said the second shot was just a backup. But that family moved not because of this. They just sold the house and downsized since then. But I hadn't really had any thing in the past lately, or heard anything lately. That's been about 3 years ago when that happened. But yeah, that's about all other than what I've seen, but like I said, there's quite a numerous people that say they see a big Black Panther around, and it could be the same thing because, what I've seen is very long, kind of humpback, and with a very long tail, and it could be mistaken crossing the road at night as a Black Panther. Also, well, I'll tell you, I have another friend, and he said his sister seen one about a mile and a half from here on another road. It's a little bit more off the river than where we're at, but she was a nurse, and she was coming home at night. It was after 12, I think. And she said as she come around a curve, she thought it was a person at first, but it was just walking across the road. She said as she got to it, she slowed, and it had got, and she said as she passed it, she looked, and it looked over her shoulders and said it was a dog standing upright. She called it a werewolf. But this woman, she's as sane as they come. She's a honest church going woman, and she really was not really wanting to, say anything about it, but she said something to her brother, and he was good with it, and he told me, and then once I was good with it, she told me. But that's about all around this area.
Well, it might come as bad news. You probably already know this news, but yeah, there's no shortage of dogmen down there in Alabama. So that would explain why so many people have had these experiences, unfortunately.
I agree. I really do. And now with the internet the way it is, people will put stuff out there, and where used to, you didn't want to go tell everybody in your community you had seen something, that they'd think he was crazy or was on, been what you've been smoking or what you've been drinking. But, nowadays the outlook's changed. I guess people are either wising up, there's just more people are coming forward with it. But yeah, there's things out there that most people wouldn't believe. They think we're crazy.
Well, they can think you're crazy all they want. You know the truth and they don't, and that's all there is to it. But having said that, let's get down to brass tacks now, Dave. Please tell us about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
All right, Vic. My son was getting married in 2017 in October, second week, and he wanted me to cook homemade brunch with stew for the wedding reception, and I told him I would. So I got all my stuff together, and a few days before the wedding, I went ahead and made the stew. Now, the way I cook stews, I cook it in a 20-gallon cast iron pot. Cook it on a real coal fire. I have 2 or 3 fires burning at the same time so I can get my coals out and put under my pot. And somebody's always stirring the stew. If it's just me cooking, I'm doing a lot of stirring. But this night, a particular evening, it hadn't got dark yet. It was probably an hour, 2 hours before dusk when I got started. But I mean, this stew would take me 3 days to cook and put together and have ready to serve. And it's 2 long days. But the first night I had my meat on the smoker, and I was boiling some chicken, some hens, in the cast iron pot to make my stock with. And it was smelling pretty good around here. And it had been a pretty day, and the evening was a real beautiful evening. It had a bluebird, there was a few clouds in the sky, but not many. And, it's just been a great day. Everything was going well. And over here where I was planning on setting up my pot and cooking, I had to move some things. So I went and got the lawn tractor and hooked the little wagon up to it, and I pulled over there, and I made 2 good hauls over to the other side of the yard where my chicken pens are at. And I put this stuff, I set it up over there with some other junk, so just junk I had. And I had about 4 or 5 more pieces over there, and each load had took me about, 5 minutes to load up. So on this last load, I went over there and I just threw the pieces in the wagon and took off back over there. And as I I had been pulling up to the chicken pen, making a U-turn, straightening back out and unloading. Well, as I did this, I looked down my fence line, which I have right behind me. I have 5 acres fenced in for my horses, and I run electric wire on it. And each wire is the bottom wire is about 18 inches off the ground. The second wire will be a little bit over 2 foot, right there around 2 foot, a little over. And then the other one will be up there around the top, maybe about 46, 47 inches. But as I made my U-turn, I looked down my fence line, and I thought it was a coyote at first. It was darker on this back, down this mid-back, and I could tell it had a real long tail, but what got me was the tail looked bushy. I mean, real excessively bushy, like when a cat is scared, how his hair stands up. Well, this tail was about big around as a chimney sweep's broom. That's what it looked like to me. And I am not, but about, at this point, I wasn't 20 yards from it. And there's, like I said, this a field and it's electric wire. I mean, there's not even hog wire or field wire. I mean, it's just 3 wires in between us. And it's headed away from me. But the chicken pen is in line with the fence line. And so what I'm thinking is a coyote or something that's been behind it, fooling with the chickens. Because I had been missing a few chickens up to this point. And it done got enough to where I was really noticing it. And so I said, I'm fixing to pop me a coyote. And I had on a Rough Rider 22 long rifle, 22 Magnum revolver, old cowboy style gun. It was my son's. But I just put it on because I was just going to shoot at some while I was out there cooking and getting everything ready. Usually I told a 45. I mean, I carry it every day. I mean, I've got it on me right now. But this particular evening, I didn't have it. And I wasn't worried. 22 Magnum, I pop him right behind the head. I know this gun's very accurate with the 22 mag in it. So I pulled the long tractor up, and I did as I had before. All I was doing was I just stop it, set the parking brake, and idle it down. I wasn't turning it off. I did the same thing. And when I stepped off the tractor, I looked, and it got a little bit further away. But it's got to turn, make a 45-degree turn, what I call a dog leg, and come back toward me to continue on this route. Well, I mean, when I get broadside and I can see it, I have my T-post for my electric fence. They're set up 16 foot apart. I use a trampoline spring on the end of each run to keep the wires taut. And if something falls on it, I can just go stretch it back up, put a new spring on it, be done. But like I said, my post 16 foot apart. Well, and this thing is in this section, 16 foot, and there's barely enough room to see any light between the nose of it and the tail of it. Now, this is before it's got dark. This is right pre-dusk hour. I mean, you can still see out. You can see decently. But it's fixing to be dark in 20, 30 minutes. Well, so I took 2 steps, and I have a gate there. And it's one of these old riveted stamped metal gates. And if you've ever seen one or used one, you know the noise they make when you look at them, much less when you touch them. But so I walked over, and I was just going to prop up on this gate and draw a good bead on this creature. But as I'm looking at it, I'm like, I can't shoot this creature. I don't know what this is. I can't shoot it. I mean, it's not a coyote. It's not a cat. I mean, because I've seen one cat back here behind my house. I've had that on video. I mean, any fishing game in Alabama or Georgia is going to tell you we don't have them down here. But I got a camera that says they do, with a chip that says they do. But anyway, this is not a cat. I mean, and just walking down the fence line, you can tell its back end, its hind end it's above the 18 inch. It's not to the 2 foot mark. It's probably a little bit over 18 inches high off the ground, judging from where I have my wires. And you can give or take an inch depending on how many times I've changed those insulators. And the front of it was a good deal above the center wire. And it looked to have a humpback. You couldn't make the head out. It didn't have a long snout. You could just see the head come up the back, like I said, look humpback. And as it broke over the humpback and come back down to the head, I don't know if it might have had what kind of head. I didn't see the head, just to tell you. But, I mean, I'm telling myself, are you going to shoot it or not? And I'm having to make all these decisions split second. And I says, well, no, I'm not. I don't know what it is, so I can't shoot it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot out here in front of it, and it's going to run off, and I'm going to get it's going to turn this corner, and I'm going to get to see, a better view of it. Because the way it's walking, it hadn't made that 45-degree turn yet. So I aim, and I'm probably 10 foot in front of it and about 6 foot low. I just wanted its concussion to go in its way to scare it off, because like I said, I'd been losing chickens. So I cocked the gun, and I laid my hand up on this gate. And when that thing, it made one creak. Now, take in mind, this lawnmower is still running. The lawn tractor is still running. It's idling low, and it runs good. It's loud, but it ain't that loud. And the one little creak off this gate, this thing turns, and it don't look around. It looks straight at me in my eye as I'm looking it dead in the eye. It's looking me dead in the eye. and there's probably 30 yards in between us. I mean, it's open grass. And I mean, it looks, and when it turned its head, and its eyes, they was big as the bottom of a Coca-Cola can. And they were about 8 inches apart. I mean, at this distance, I mean, I could tell that they wasn't, I had never seen anything its eyes that was this far apart in my life, except maybe a bull or, a cow, something of that nature. But, I mean, that surprised me. And I hadn't pulled the trigger yet. So, I mean, I'm sitting there, and it seems like it took forever, but it went down quick. And I guess I surprised it. I don't think it was expecting me back that soon. But, it looked at me, and its eyes was that amber. I mean, I'm like, my God, what is this? And I'd already had my gun up there, and I pulled the trigger. And like I said, I was about 12 foot out, 6 foot down, and I didn't never see it. I didn't see it run off. I didn't see what it did. Like I said, I've run dogs my whole life up until we couldn't. Oh, you had to have a lot of land to run them. But I mean, I shoot with both eyes open. I mean, I've shot on the run so much it's unreal. And I don't flinch when I shoot a lot. I don't flinch. I don't close my eyes. And when I pull the trigger, this thing, it ceased to exist. And I'm like, my God, where did it go? I'm listening, my ears, they're working. I'm looking with I'm just looking, listening, and nothing, just nothing. My Lord, where did this thing go? And then I'm like, okay. So I had it was getting darker now. Cause I mean, it wasn't that far before dark. Well, I seen his eyes. I didn't have a light or nothing. His eyes illuminated themselves. I mean, I could still had a good shot of his side. It was his side quartering away from me. And, it just blew my mind. But anyway, so I'm standing there. I walk back over to the lawnmower and I take my headlight off, and I just had put new batteries in it. I don't know what lume it is, but it's very, very, very bright. And I put it on my hat, and turned it on, and it's got a spotlight mode on it, and I'm running it up and down my fence. I'm shining it to the back of the property as far as it'll go. And then I'm looking out toward my neighbor's house over here, but in between me and his house, there's an old trailer out there. And I'm looking, over this way, and, I don't see it. Well, I'm getting ready to go back and just go back to cooking stew, and I'm running that headlight up and down the line one more time, and from where it was standing to where I see it at is probably about 30 to 35 foot. And there's a terrace in between where it was at and where there's an oak tree, a white oak. And it has been here forever, because it'd take probably 4 grown men to reach all the way around it. And I had a chicken pen down there, and that I put little cockerel in, to keep them, keep my hens. And when the hens had the chicks and everything, I'd go ahead and sort them, and I'd sell the hens, and then the little cockerels, I'd sell them also at a flea market. But I had a little pen down there, and when I built it, it was 6 foot high. I had bought 4x4s, 8 foot, to put as the corners down there. And when I'm scanning this is right up under the white oak tree. And when my light comes by, and I see just a little glimmer of something, and then I lock back on it, and it's 2 orange eyes, and they're not wide anymore. It's like it had closed them and it had slits, and it was peeping through slits, or halfway open. Or it might have been normal. Where I scared it, and it just might have got wide. I don't know. But anyway, I see this, and I'm like, okay, how did it get right there? So, I'm all processing all this at that time. So I still got my 22 in the hand. I said, well, if that thing didn't run off when I pulled the trigger, that tells me right there that, I don't like this thing already. So I cocked it, because this is a single action. I cocked it again, and I aimed right at the white oak tree. And it was hiding behind this tree, peeping out around it, looking up to where I am. So I shot the tree, and again, I didn't see it run off. I didn't hear nothing. And I'm like, okay. And I stood right there. I guarantee you, I stood in that position for 10 more minutes right there by that gate, right where I was at. And I'd turn the light off. I would listen. I'd turn it back on and, search over there. And they just, I didn't see anything. So I said, well, I done wasted enough time doing this. I got other things I need to do. Because I got chicken over here in a pot boiling. And I don't know where I'm at, or as how much water's in there. I don't want to burn anything, so I'm kind of in a hurry. So I'm going back up there, and I'm fixing to get on the lawnmower and just come on back over here. And right before I stepped back up on the deck, I said, well, that thing come from behind the chicken pen. I'm going to run over and check it out. So I walk over to the chicken pen, and I look over in it. I've got 10 all the way around the very bottom of it. But I just look over in the 10, and I see the birds in there, and none of them's disturbed or anything like that. They're just as calm as they can be. And, I said, I'm like, well, darn, okay. It hadn't been fooling with them. So I said, I better go check, see if it's been digging behind it. So I walked behind the chicken pen, and between, there's a 3-strand barbed wire fence that filled up a gap of about 25 foot between a field fence and my chain link fence. And I just had it in there where I'd let my horses in every once in a while and eat the grass down instead of cutting it. And it really wasn't much of a fence at all. It was just some wire strung up. But anyway, there was about 10, 15 foot in between the back of the pen and this wire. And I looked behind the pen, and there's nothing. Nothing's been digging. The leaves on the ground hadn't been disturbed, pine straw leaves. And as I'm fixing to turn around, I'm looking up and going to turn to my left and look back down the fence line, because I'll be parallel with the way it was leaving. As I turned my head to the left, low, about 10 foot in front of me, is these same 2 eyes. Now, I didn't need my headlight. My headlight's up high where I'm turning my head. I'm looking down, and I see these 2 slits about 8 inches apart, and it looks like it's, peeping's what I call it. Like it had done come up there and got down low, and it was peeping at me. And, I just said to heck with it. And I still had the pistol in my hand. I had never hosted it. And I already had it cocked. And I come up with it, it was already about halfway up. I just had to move my arm maybe 6, 8 inches, and it would be pointed right in between his eyes. It's got fiber optic sights on it. So, I pulled up right between his eyes, and I pulled the trigger. And automatically I cocked it again, and I just pulled up just a little bit and pulled the trigger. And when the gunshot quietened down, I didn't see any movement that close when it left from the position where it was at, 10 foot in front of me. His head was his eyes was probably about a foot off the ground. So if it had his muzzle or the bottom of his chin laid on the ground, and his eyes was about a foot up where the eyes were. So, that's the way what I'm assuming. because there's really nothing up there except pine straw unless he just had his head crouched down. But I didn't see a thing. I mean, I didn't, the trees, the bushes wasn't moving. And right behind this area where I'm talking about is where that old trailer is, and there's a driveway that makes a U around the trailer. And in between my side of the property line and where that drive is, it's probably about 14 foot at the most, and it was nothing but pivot hedge. And it had been cut at one time flat, and it had grown up bushy, but the bushes had then got up higher, and it was just more or less the stalk, down here at the bottom, the trunk of it. And so like I said, you could see up through there. And when I pulled the trigger the first time, I didn't see any movement, and that's why I come up and just pulled it a second time, and just in case it was out there anywhere close. But I didn't hear anything, and I stood there for probably about another 10 minutes just looking. And I reloaded the little 22 mag, and I never heard anything else. And then I come in and come back over here and tended my food. I had to go in there. I come in the house and I told my wife, "You ain't gonna believe this." And then I told her the story there, and she said, "Well, I heard you shoot." I really didn't think nothing of it. He told me he was gonna shoot. I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I don't know what it was." I said, "It wasn't no cat or anything like that." And so I don't know, it rocked on. It was about 2 weeks down the road. We were right outside the back here, kind of the same area where I was doing the stew at. And we had a steak on the grill. And right by the time the steak was getting done, I heard that scream, howl, growl, whatever you want to call it. And the way it starts off, the scream of it, it's like somebody's killing a woman. And I ain't never heard anything like it. But, it was right over there exactly where that oak tree was. And that's probably about maybe 50 yards from my back door. But, I told Debbie, I said, we're going to go in the house and eat tonight. And she looked at me and smiled, said, "That's fine with me." But, now prior to this though, I cooked stew. That night, I stayed out till like 4:00 that morning by myself. I never seen or heard anything else, and I was kind of looking that night. The next night, I stayed out probably the same time, and nothing. I was kind of looking for it to come back because I got the sense that it was watching me, and I caught it and surprised it when it left. It wasn't expecting me to catch it. But anyway, I haven't seen it since. But that's it on that one. Now, my neighbor across the road, like I said, about 3 years ago, they'd come in and they'd been dirt road riding. It was about 1:00 when they pulled in, and I heard the truck come in, and then I heard gunshots. I didn't think nothing about down here. You don't think nothing about gunshots. Something's out there messing with somebody's chickens. They're gonna step out the back door and shoot it. If they see a coyote, they're gonna shoot it. We don't go calling, asking, "Hey, what you shooting at?" If it's worth telling, we'll tell it. But next day I seen him and his girlfriend out there in the driveway, and I said, "Hey, man, I heard you shooting last night." And he said, "Oh, yeah, Mr. David." And he was going to tell me the story, but she jumped in there and she said, "Oh, let me tell you." She said, when we turned in, Dave, and said, I looked over at the dog pen, and there was something trying to get our dog. It was stuck about halfway through it trying to get it. And when we turned in, it pulled out and looked back at me, and then it jumped the dog pen. and landed in some pine trees, real thick pine trees out here. And that distance is probably about 30 foot. Cause I went over there and gave him the material to patch the chain link hole with. And it stuck his paws, his claws, whatever it's got. It had stuck them in there and pulled the chain, galvanized chain link, had pulled them apart, made it a big hole, stretched the wire. I do fence work for a living. That's what I do. And I'm here to tell you, it takes a lot to stretch some galvanized chain link. I mean, a car running into it, yeah, I mean, it don't break it, but it stretch it. But, I mean, this stuff right here, you just grab it and then open the hole. But when it went in the woods, he turned, as his truck turned, he said, Mr. Dave, I seen his eyes before the lights hit it. He said, then that's when I jumped out with a gun and shot at it. And I asked him what color his eyes were, and he told me a yellowish amber color, and I'm like, okay, same thing I seen. And he I said, yeah, I shot directly at his eyes, his head the first time, and he said the second shot was just a follow-up, just in case I could hit it. I asked him, what'd you have in it? He said, buckshot. And I said, well, good, at least you did hit it. But I doubt he did. I had never seen, like I said, I didn't see it. And that's what blows my mind. It's so fast when it decides to move. If it don't want you to see it, you ain't going to see it. I don't know if they jump and then take off. Or I don't know if they jump to trees and go through the treetops. I have no idea. But now, hearing it, I've heard it back here behind my house, not as close as a while ago when I told you. But, I've heard it 3 other times back in the woods behind the house here. And this area we live in down here, it's a rural area, but it's on a power company, Georgia Power Company lake. And it's populated, but it's all rural. So, they got to be willing to put up with people around here. It ain't that these around here, they trying to be by themselves. They right here amongst us. But I've had a friend that's about a mile down the creek from me here. He called me one morning and asked me what was in the woods, that something had outside his window made the awfulest noise he ever heard in his life, and he couldn't describe it. I asked him what it sounded like. And I take it this is a big man, very big man, and he has hunted all over the Southeast, and he's asking me, I can tell by his voice, it's rattling. He's a good friend, and I can tell it rattling. But he wants to know what's in these woods back here. And I asked him, what do you mean? And he said, well, last night about 2 or 3 o'clock, he says, I think it was 3 o'clock, something outside his window made the awfulest noise, and said, when I come to my senses, he said, I was belly crawling to the hall with my .357 revolver in my hand. And he sleeps with a .357 under his pillow. A lot of people around here do. Not necessarily a .357, but anyway. He said, I went to the living room and sit down on the couch, and I'm sitting there scratching my head, pondering, wondering, what that was. And he said it did it again, except this time it was up here on the front of the cabin, on one side of the cabin. He said, so I got up and went out to the porch, and I take it this porch there used to be glassed in. Oh, and he's sitting out there on his porch, and he's looking, and he said he's done got groggy, and said he's fixing to go back to bed. And said when he stood up and turned around, it did it again right outside the door to the right, to the left of where, if you walked out hit the door to the deck, it went to the left. So he said he walked out and turned to the left, expecting to see whatever this was. And, he's standing there with his gun looking there and his flashlight looking, and there's nothing there, which he'd got floodlights all around his house. And it's on the other side of the deck, and it howls. I mean, it makes this blood curdling scream at him again. And he said as he turned, he seen like a blur. And he walked over to that side and looked down the side of his house and up to his backyard, and then up to his backyard is clear. I mean, it's a few little oak trees. And you turn to your left and you're looking at a creek. I mean, it's a big creek, pretty big creek. But still, I mean, that's in his front yard, and he can see straight to it. But in between him and his neighbor, there is a ravine with granite outcroppings in it, and it's probably 40, 50 foot deep, and it makes a hollow and comes from the creek and runs up between these two properties. And he guesses it jumped off in there. But he passed away not long ago, so I really hadn't had a chance to ask him if he'd heard it anymore. But that's about it, I guess, on the Dogmen. I'm kind of figure that as much as I hear around here and as much as I'm in the woods, that I'll probably come cross paths with it again. I mean, I'm really not that worried about it. It had been watching me that day, and it didn't try to fool around. I mean, it was that close, and I'd been shooting at it, and it still hadn't fooled with me. So, I mean, like I said, I didn't know what they were to begin with. But on that day, I went on a search. That night, I went on a search to find out what the Dogman was. I knew it wasn't a Bigfoot. I knew it wasn't a Bigfoot. And that, I mean, it just, I don't know. The height of the eyes, the first time I seen it when it stood up behind that tree, I mean, I couldn't understand how it got that high when it was on the ground. But other than that, I guess that's it.
You told us about the neighbor that sleeps with his 357 under his pillow after he saw it. Have you made any changes yourself to how you do things in an effort to try to protect yourself from it?
Well, about that time that happened, I had some young punks that was trying to rob us. And they had tried to, come in the house on us. And I mean, I heard them, I have catahoulas. I don't know if you know what a catahoula is. It's a Louisiana state dog. They're very beautiful. They're very, very beautiful. But I keep those and bulldogs around, and I always got one in the house. And when they tried to come in the back door, the one on the end of my bed, he just went off the chain. And I'm just that kind of guy, Vic. I mean, every corner of my house, I got a loaded gun. I mean, that's just the way it is. And by the time I got to the door and opened it, I mean, I caught one of them, and it was a girl, but they were coming in to rob us, and nothing could have come good of that. But I put security cameras and motion detectors up on the house, the property. So, I mean, I really, hadn't seen anything, I think, because of that. But, I feel, knowing that's out there, I do feel safer because of what I've heard, listening to your show and to other shows, is that, that the security cameras help. They don't really like to come out in the light, and they don't, want to, they try to stay out of the public side more or less. But so I think that might have helped me. But yeah, I mean, as far as our security around here, I mean, like I said, I've always got a pistol on me. There's always very, very handy. I mean, when I go out and when I'm out in the yard working, or back here working with the horses, or out here working on the fence, mending the fence or something, I'll carry a 357 Magnum rifle with me. I got my 45, and there'll be a 12 gauge, 870 slug gun in the back seat. And but I just leave them in the truck. I mean, that's just kind of how it is, So, I mean, I've always got some handy protection, so I really don't never worry about it. But there's always the chance. And like I said, that day I didn't want to kill that creature. I didn't know what it was. I mean, I'm not no killer. Now, I'm a hunter, but I'm not just a killer. I don't want to go shoot something and say I shot it. I mean, I wanted to know what that was. Now I'd heard, prior, that the Georgia Department of Natural Resources had released red wolves back into the environment, and directly across the river from my place in Georgia, there's a wildlife preserve over there. There's a campground and wildlife preserve, but I'd heard the DNR had released the red wolf back into Georgia, and they had turned mate and pair loose over there. Now, I don't know. A red wolf can't climb no tree. I mean, a red wolf, when it stands on its back legs, it can't be 8 foot tall. And I know this creature was 8 foot off the ground down there behind that white oak tree, because I used that just chicken pen I had built to measure it. But I do feel that that just kind of throws it off right there. I don't know how. I guess I need to look up and check a red wolf out and see how they could be off the ground. But it ain't got the eyes, amber eyes, that self-illuminate. So, I mean, I throw things around in my head, and then, I rethink things. I'm like, no, that's stupid. Don't waste your time,
Oh, sure. When you have an experience like that, or experiences like you had, more than one, obviously, you're going to run through all sorts of options through your head. So it's totally normal that you've been responding that way. I'm wondering, though, Dave, if its tail was as long as its body, did it hold the end of its tail off the ground or let it drag?
It's funny you say that, Vic. When it was humpback, as I said, and the front end of the body was up higher than the back end. And that was very noticeable. I mean, it's kind of like it had a mane, maybe. I mean, I can't say it did, but I mean, it was thick, humpback, and it looked like it might have had a mane. Maybe not a thick mane, not a long mane, but an excessive growth around his neck or right there on his back. But as it come down to his haunches back there, his tail, it runs straight parallel to the ground. It didn't point up. It didn't point down. It run parallel, because that's something else that crossed my mind. I was looking at it compared to the fence wire, the electric wire, and I use the heaviest electric wire that Red Brand offers. I mean, it's a very, very, very thick wire, and at distance you can see it. I mean, it's not like it's a little bitty electric wire you buy. And this is very, very thick wire, and you can see it at a distance. And I was comparing where I would think the tailbone of that tail would be, and to that wire, and that just like, I mean, what creature on earth holds its tail like that? I mean, usually they either let it drag, or it's either curled, or at least pointed up in the air. This was parallel to the ground. And like I said, it was big as a chimney sweep broom. It looked like a cat's tail when a cat's scared. He just blowed out there. And this creature wasn't scared by any means. So I don't know why it'd have his tail blowed up like that, unless it was like that all the time, or that's just one of them questions. I'd like to know the answer. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't mind seeing the creature. I didn't have no intent to kill it that day. I just wanted it away from my chickens. I mean, if I run across it again and it don't make me it don't look at me funny, I ain't going to look at it funny. I believe in live and let live, but, I'll dish out what you bring. But yeah, that kind of, I've tried to kind of enlighten people in the area and, tell them about it, in a casual way. And my close friends, they listen to me because they know I don't talk no BS. Now, some of my neighbors up here that don't know me in that well, they think I'm just joshing them or something. But we've right behind the house here is it's an old railroad bed, and the tracks and everything's been taken up now. But I maintain it. I've been doing so for about the past 22, 23 years. It from behind my house to the creek back here, which the creek kind of just bends, in and out, then it run parallel to this railroad track. But it's a beautiful area, and it's a beautiful area to ride horses. And it's like I said, it's about 2 miles long back there, and I'll take the bush hog and run it up and down it about twice a year, and then I'll put some herbicide on it, and I keep it limbed up with my pole saw, so, riding through it, all you're going to get on your spider webs. But we have rode on that back there on many occasions and never really smelt anything, but the horses pick up on something. And I mean, I got good horses. I mean, they are very, very good horses, and many, many miles apart, and just never, any problem. And then one day, me and my wife's riding back there, and we get closer to the railroad bed. I mean, closer to there's a trestle that crosses it. Now, this trestle, it's been demolished, and the only thing is still there is the concrete and the risers that held the tracks. You can't walk across it or anything. But anyway, we're getting close to down there, and we're going to get down there and stop and have a drink and a snack, and turn around and ride back. We did this this was like a week. Every week we'd do this 3 or 4 times, if not more. Sometimes we did it daily, just depending on how busy we were. But get down here, and the horses they refuse to go any further. I mean, they're on the verge of standing up and just spinning and turning. I mean, they're sitting there. They don't want to. It's like they hit an invisible wall. I mean, they're sitting there and they're stamping their feet up and down, and just wanting to turn around and go. And we're fighting them as they do this. And finally, we make them come on back and go on. And but when we go through, they're looking one way, and their butt end's facing the creek, and they're looking up a hill up one way. And we go, and both fires did this, and we get on down on the railroad bed to the trestle, and we talk about it, but we don't get off our mounts. We stayed mounted. I flipped around the saddlebag and got us a drink out and some trail mix, and we just sit there and discuss what was going on. We thought there might be a cat or something out there, but like I said, the game wardens around here, so they ain't no bears either. We got them swimming across the lake. But on video. But anyway, we get through the drink, and we put everything in our saddlebags, our trash, and we turn around and ride back, and we get back to the same spot, and the same thing happens. Except when we come through this time, it's like they're ready to go to the barn. They're barn babies. I mean, and they try to bolt on us. And well, my wife and I, we're very experienced riders, and we keep them calm as we can. But they're trying to go. I mean, they're pushing the bit hard as they can. They're sweating. I mean, they done got nervous. And, we get on up the trail there, probably, I don't know, about halfway home. And they kind of quit pushing the bit, but they never quit sweating on that whole ride. And then that repeated itself probably about 3 more times since then. And it's not always in the same exact spot, but it's always on the lower end of what I call the end closest to the creek from us. And I've had a friend that had some dogs, Catahoula's. Matter of fact, he was training them It's been last year. And I was listening to him run as he was training them back here behind the house on his creek. And every time they'd tree, now I don't know what, I don't know what he was training them. I think he was training them to, coon dogs. I'm not sure. But he never would tell nobody. I don't know. I really don't know what he had 5 of them in the mama dog, but he had them back here running. And every time they'd tree, you'd hear, the dogs just barking hard tree. And the next thing you know, you'd hear dogs going to yelping. And that's how the race would end. And that went on for about, I don't know, about a month. And then one night I was out there and I heard them, they was pushing them hard. And when they treed, I heard 2 roars, or these was kind of a roar. I don't know. I haven't heard anything like it, but you heard 2 distinct ones, and all of a sudden you heard dogs go to hollering. I mean, holler. And to make a long story short, a guy that was working for me. He went and helped my friend that next morning, and it killed 3 of them back there, and he had to put another one down. So he just tore them apart. And the guy that worked for me, he said, Dave, he said, he just tore them apart. I said, there'd be a leg here and a leg over there. And he said, one of them was ripped in half. And I said, what'd y'all do? He said, I just went up there and, we went over and got the tractor and dug a hole and, backhoe and dug a hole and we threw the bodies off it and covered them up. And I'm like, okay, He said, there wasn't really much else we could do. And he said that other dog, he said the mama dog and that other dog said they ain't going to be worth nothing. They was up there at the house just honkered down on the carport. But I don't know. There's something in these woods. And, they say they travel on creeks and rivers, so we got a double shot at it right here. Needless to say, we're on old Indian ground.
Oh, well, that would explain a lot.
Oh, yeah. I got it documented. In 1836, when they had the Trail of Tears, you've heard of that. When they rounded all the Indians up, I've got copies from the courthouse of maps that were made at the time when they did a census of the Indians living in this area. And they told them they was giving them some land, but they was just letting them use it till they got ready to come get them, But, the Indians that was on this land in 1836, I know their names. And at Fort Mitchell down here on the river, all of them that was in this area that were rounded up and sent to Oklahoma, all their names are in a marble stone down there where there was a big creek town on Chattahoochee down there. The Indians that's on my map, they're on that stone down there. So, and there's, where some burials are, but they're not necessarily on my property, but they're in the area, all this land, back in the day, back in the 1800s and earlier was, it was all Indian land right here. But yeah, I think it's probably got something to do with it too. I really do. Like I said, I try to keep an open mind and just watch out. I go out here and feed the horses, take care of the chickens, being hot. It's so hot here right now. My wife told me earlier it was like 78 with the humidity. It was up in the 90s. It's terrible out here where I'm at right now. But, a lot of times when it's like this, I do stuff in the evening. From when it cools off up until 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever it takes. Because I'm not going to get out there. I done got too old to get out there in the heat. I ain't got to and ain't going to.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I'll get up and go to work in the morning, knock off at 12, and I go back that evening and, whatever it takes. But, yeah, so I just always keep it in the back of my head. Never a day goes by. Never a day goes by that I don't think. I remember I can close my eyes and see it on that in my mind. I can see his eyes, him looking at me right now. I mean, it don't bother me. It don't bother me at all. It's just I kind of feel lucky I've got to see something like that. I mean, that kind of enlightened my scope. I mean, I'm a lot more open-minded now than I used to be. But sure am. But now, there's some other lands that we've hunted on that, we've had some other types of experiences with. I've actually had a place we camped at, 2 deer. It was during doe days, and it was the first of these doe days, and there's an old house we stayed at. And it was an old farmhouse, and it was built on a breezeway, but it was a big old house. But we'd done built us some bunk beds, and we used it quite a few years in a row. But, I'd take some grass rope every year. We'd put all the deer on front of this house that we killed during doe days. This is back when it got cold down south. It's been many years ago. But, we'd hang these deer out there, and just keep a tally on them, just kind of show off to other hunting clubs. But I had 2 myself that I'd hanging out there on it, and hadn't anybody else killed anything yet. Well, we went to the other side of the county to turn some dogs loose and make a drive on some land we had over there. Hadn't been hunted all year. When we got back over here to our house, where we was camping at, my deer were gone. The rope was broke. One end of it was pointing out toward the road. The deer were pulled off of it, and you could see where something it was sage grass, probably up a little bit, not quite waist high, but you could see where something had just walked off through there, and that's the way the rope went. And right directly across the road, it was just an old tar gravel road, what it was. Other side of it, there was another sage field, and then a big swamp right behind it. And I always got the feeling that something was over in that swamp edge watching us when we camped over there. I mean, never a bad feeling, just that, the perception that you're being watched, But that same area, I mean, a lot of people seen the guy that he'd come up on the tracks, the railroad tracks, and right before dusk, and it'd stand up there and kind of sway back and forth. But it was always so far off that back in them days, I mean, some people would have a 3x9 scope, but most of us just used the old 4-power scope because we was hunting in thick cover. And it wasn't like it is these days, just fields everywhere. But we'd sit down there on that railroad track at different places and, catch them crossing. And a lot of people seen it down there. It always stay far enough. I mean, a lot of people thought it was the guy that owned at least the land that was next to us. A lot of them thought it was him that would come out there and just trying to mess their hunt up, but, ain't nobody wants to do that. They might get shot, I know a couple of them sent loads downrange to this creature. But, I mean, I've seen it. And, I mean, now I've seen it was like maybe 300 yards, 400 yards down a railroad track, and it with a 4-power scope, you can't really see nothing except a blob. But you could tell it was moving back and forth. In this same area, I had turned some dogs loose, and when they jumped, I shot. It was during doe days, and we knew there was a lot of does in this little block of land. And I went in there and turned my dogs loose, and when they got down through there just a little bit, they jumped. And I seen about 4 or 5 come up, and I pulled down on the closest one, shot. I seen it go down, watched it hit the ground, didn't move. And then I found another one, and then I popped it, and it went down, but it come back up real quick. And the dogs was on some of these other deer. And the one I had shot, it run off. I went up to try to, put it on down. And it had went on down toward these railroad tracks, and another guy shot it. So I see him, he got it, and they got my dogs out there, and so I turned around, and I'm going back to get my deer. And when I get back to where it was at, there's a big blood pool. There ain't no deer nowhere. Nowhere. And, I'm like, well, I know which deer was dead. There's hair where I hit it. On the impact, there's hair. Everywhere is up on the side of these little pine trees. And I know I hit it. So I started, making little circles and, around this and opening the circle up, trying to find, if it, all this blood, it couldn't have went far, and it's got to be a good trail. So I didn't see a thing. And after I probably got out about 35 foot from where the blood was, I seen some, but it was up about shoulder height. I'm 6'1", and it was about at my shoulder height. And I looked at it, I'm like, well, how in the heck did this get up this high? And then I looked, and on up through this little pine thicket, you can see a swipe here and a swipe there. And it's headed back off in the direction of where we usually seen this, whatever it was, come up on these railroad tracks. And it's headed back off in that direction. There's a big beaver pond back in there. And I'm just to myself, I'm like, if something wants that bad, it can have it. I mean, I'm not going down there chasing it. But my brother-in-law come up in there, and he looked around, and he couldn't believe it either. But I mean, it just disappeared after a little bit. I mean, it didn't. We followed it just a very little bit, and then it disappeared, and we didn't see any more blood. And the property line was not far from us, so we couldn't have went much further without trespassing anyway. So I just decided whatever got it could have it. I'd get me another one. But I had one more over there, kind of close to this, probably about 2 miles from it. But I had turned my dogs loose on the creek. And actually, it's another creek that runs into the lake here that I live on. But it's up at the headwaters of it. But I come through this hollow, and my dogs just will not go anywhere. They were right there with me. I had some real good dogs. Blue ticks, red bones, Julies. I mean, they'd smoke a deer. And they'd turn around and come back, too. That was the good thing about them. You didn't have to hunt them all the time. But no, you hardly ever turned them out and they wouldn't jump, much less never turned them out and they wouldn't hunt. But I turned them loose that day, and they was within 10 to 15 feet of me for about, I don't know, probably about a mile down a creek bottom. And they wouldn't hunt. And, I talked to the landowner that was hunting with us that day. So I said, they wouldn't hunt. He said, no dog you turn loose out here hunt. So evidently they had, done it before. And that's exactly his words. Ne'er dog you turn loose out here. Since then, that area out there has been, I think, 2 sightings out there on that area that's been recorded, I think, with that other organization that records them. I don't promote nobody, especially, some people like that. But, and they were very recent when they were made, within the past, I think, 5 or 6 years. But anyway, I've had some up in Georgia, like just walking up on you. I was young. Right after I first started hunting, I was probably about 9 years old. My brother-in-law, he showed me where a tree stand was, and I'm like, okay, I can find it. And there was an old skidder trail going out there to where it was at. It was a good tree stand. It was up in 3 poplar trees, and it was probably 30 foot high. It was real high, but it had a good seat in it, had sides built on it, so I liked it. But the first time I went and got up in it, it was early morning, way about, I don't know, 45 minutes before it got dawn. And back in them days, we just had little old bitty pin lights. And I had a little pin light, and I walked that skidder trail, and I got up in that stand. And by the time I got my gun pulled up to me on the rope and got settled, I heard footsteps, bipedal footsteps. I heard somebody walking. And I'm like, well, that's got to be my brother-in-law coming to check on me. So, and I sit there, and you can hear it. It come right up behind my tree stand. And within probably, I don't know, 20 foot, there was a clump of little small birch trees back there. And a bush growing up in them. And it was right there. I mean, and every time I went to that stand, that would happen. But come daylight, there would never be nothing there. But you would hear it come up in there every morning. As soon as you got up in the stand. I sit in that stand one day, it was in the afternoon, and it was somebody talking. It sounded like, but now since I've heard what their chatter sounds like, and I know that's what it was. I thought it was people it was right over the ridge that, I just couldn't understand what they were saying. But it sounded like samurai chat. It was kind of funny. But my brother-in-law, I'd ask him, did he hear anything? And he didn't hear anything. He never had any issues up there. I don't know. I always felt like, like I said, there's something right there that was watching me at that spot. I didn't ever feel any, bad things, no bad vibes. It was just, I always felt like something was there. And who wouldn't? When you're sitting there and you hear something walk up, it sounds just like what a person would. And, especially with, how your mind is at that age. But I was looking for a deer, and that's all I was looking for. I didn't want no Bigfoots. And then, but I killed one right down from there about a year later, and they were standing in a big old clump of birch, and they were looking back up the hill. And I had to go to the bathroom, so I didn't go in my stand. I got out from the stand and hit the logging road and made a way big loop around to where the loading dock was. And when I got back there, I noticed there was quite a few deer standing out in these birch, and they were all looking back up toward the ridge top. And it was the first day of doe days up there, so I picked me out the closest one. And I dropped my rifle. I dropped crosshairs on her. I popped her, and she hit the ground right then and there. And the rest of them turned around and run toward me and quartered away from me. But when they turned around, they come toward the gunshot. I'd never had a deer do that before. They always going away from the gunshot. But these deer turned around and come to that. I was looking up one way, they turned opposite way and come toward me and veered to the left like they wasn't worried about me at all. And I went up there and drug my deer out to the road, and I never thought anything else about it until, when I got to putting two and two together and everything that went on up there, and how many times I heard something in the woods. But, like I said, there was never a bad feeling. So, now I've had one bluff charge, and it's real close to home. Actually, it's on the upper ends of this creek that's behind my house. It was on my sister had married this guy, and his daddy was a huge landowner in the area, very, very, very well off. But I worked for this man from the time I was 12 years old on up until I was in my mid-20s. But I had run of the land. I worked hard. He liked me. I was there when he wanted me. He liked me. You know what I mean? But I went out there one morning, and well, I hadn't been seeing no deer over here where I've been hunting at, or I had been seeing a few, but they were all does. And there's this section of land over here, and it's on the side of Interstate 85. And there's an old textile mill that sits right beside the interstate, and this bunch of trees. I mean, this land is never hunted, but this gentleman owns 190 acres right there next to it, and nobody had really been over there. I mean, he hadn't developed in the cow pasture or anything. It's just standing pine. So I decided, I'm going to go over here and try this. So I pull in that morning, and all I'm planning on doing is walking through on these little roads through these set out pines, and it's cut up in blocks, and just easing down these roads, slipping from tree to tree, and grunting a little bit, and scouting the area out. Well, I mean, I get out there about 45 minutes before it gets daylight, and I pull up out in the middle of this field. I mean, I can see their house from where I'm at out across this field, probably about, I don't know, 200, 300 yards. And there's a lake right behind their house. And I just pull up out there and I stop right there. And I didn't want to pull up too close to the fence because I didn't want, because right on the other side of the fence is where this land starts at. Just, I want to go hunt. So I get out, and as soon as I get out, shut the door and make sure I got everything and getting everything situated, I hear noise coming from right exactly where I'm planning on entering the woods at. And I'm like, what in the heck is this? And I listen, and I mean, it's tearing the woods up. And like I said, I didn't believe in Dogman. I didn't believe in Bigfoot. And so I'm thinking, what is this tearing the woods up? And it's got to be a big buck. It's rut's on down here. And, the bucks they rutting good. And that's one reason I was going to go up in here and do a little grunt. Well, I'm sitting there and I'm listening, and I'm hearing sticks break. Turned out to be trees breaking. And just all kind of just commotion up there. And this went on from the time I got out of that truck to about, I don't know, 2 minutes before it got daylight enough to where you could see. And I had done, like I said, I don't know if this is bluff charge. I don't know what this was meant to be. I call it a bluff charge. But I had done eased on up to the edge of this fence. And I'm getting ready to slip up over the gate and drop to the other side. But I wasn't going over to the other side until I could see good. Well, about that, I got over, and like I said, it done got where I could see. And I hit this little logging road, and I ease up it probably about, I don't know, 40 foot. And it makes like a hard left-hand turn. And when you make that left-hand turn, there was trees, pine trees. I don't know. They were they were probably down 3, 4, 5 inches in the meter. Some of them, they were broke off about 6 foot up. Limbs broke out of these trees from 6, 8, 9 foot out of it's ripped off the side of the tree. All the pine straw has just been raked down to the ground out of the road. And this is probably a section about, I don't know, I'd say about 30 foot of the road, and it was fresh. You could tell it was very, very fresh. I mean, it smelled like fresh dirt. All the pine straw had just been raked up out of it, off to the edges of the roads. All the limbs had been broke, were thrown off to the edge of the roads. But it went up, and it turned, and there's another road right there, and it did this on that road. It might be where it started at and come toward it. I'm not sure. But the same thing, it was up there. I mean, it wasn't, like I said, this place was cut up in blocks. This little road right where I'm talking, the first one, it was on right where the blocks met. So it was on the corner of this one, and you turn and went up this one about 30, 40 foot, and it was also up there. And like I said, it was a patch about 30 foot long, maybe, and the width of the road, and the road was a good wide road for the, being out and set out pines. It was kept up very well. And I don't know what got me was when I got out of the truck and I heard stuff breaking. And when I got up there and saw this stuff breaking, it was up higher than any deer could ever think about, breaking something with this antler. But anyway, I proceeded to hunt that day, and I went up through there, and there was nothing. There was no tracks, deer tracks. There was no feces on the ground. Really, there was no birds. no squirrels. There was lots of mushrooms coming up out of the ground. And, usually the squirrels tear them up, the deer too. But now, like I said, this land, nobody went on it because a major corporation owned it, and they kept it fenced in and, posted. So, I mean, nobody would really disturb anything on this land. So, the more I think about it, I mean, I think it probably was a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call it. But, that kind of, I never really knew how to take that until I started listening to until I found out about the Dogman. After I found out about the Dogman and started listening to all these cryptic shows, I mean, you put patterns together, and I've just got to thinking about my whole life about it. And then, they're just weird things, that you kind of put one and one together, and, you didn't see it, but you heard it, and, what else would it be? But I guess that's about it.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dave, for anyone who wants to have a cryptid encounter, I think they could do a lot worse than to head out to your area, because sounds like you're ate up with them. Sounds like they're all over the place. But having said that, we're about out of time. Before we get out of here, do you have any closing comments you'd like to put out there for us?
Well, I just like to say, if you're out in the woods, just be very, very careful. Keep your eye out. Don't stop going out and enjoying yourself, but just keep your eye out. Because there's stuff out there that most people would never believe existed. And with that, I guess that's it. Vic?
Well, that's really good advice, because if we had any clue what's really out there, I don't know that we'd ever set foot outside again. But you've seen that.
Brother.
Yeah, you've definitely seen that. Well, thanks again so much for your time, Dave, for coming on, sharing those experiences with us. And if I can ever help you out in the future, please let me know. Thanks again so much, and have a great night.